Yes.
Here we are.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the big fun show here. Whatever. This is a fun show, big TV.
Fun show.
It could be a bad show,
It's
fun show.
December 25th.
Could be.
I just had.
No. It's not the 25th.
It's not Christmas?
No, it's the 15th. I tested you beforehand.
I have to wait for Christmas?
Yes,
Yes.
you have to wait. You have to wait 10 more days.
You can, by the way, you can butt in at
Will
any
my,
time.
will my
That's part of
eggnog
this.
last?
No, eggnog's a finicky beverage.
I got to get fresh eggnog
You
for
gotta
Christmas?
get fresh eggnog.
All right, folks, I'm done. I had my cataracts done this week, and I can't see what I'm thinking, but this is the fun show on Big TV, and this is a very special edition tonight for December 15th in two regards. One is it gives us the first opportunity to wish you all a happy Hanukkah. And
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah.
Yes.
Happy Hanukkah.
Okay.
rumble, grumble, gumble, rumble.
And Merry Christmas. Okay.
And
And Kwanzaa. Don't forget
First-
about Kwanzaa.
But who knows about it?
Not
That's
many.
it. Oh,
Not many.
Okay.
over there, grumbling away, is Mike Sallen, our producer and chief factotum
I used
here.
to be. Yeah.
Directly to my right is Kiera Miner,
Thank you.
and I'm Arch O'Riley. And the extra chair today is occupied by our new executive director here at
Here.
Big TV.
Here.
This is Kathy Bisbee, who was born and raised in Western Maine. Then she snuck her way out to the left coast for a while. And now we got her back here to be the executive director of Brookline Interactive Group. Welcome, Kathy.
Welcome.
Thank
welcome.
you. Thanks for having me. And well done on the
And
main
I think that's
accent.
about as much as I'm going to do that.
Bravo.
Yes.
He
My
doesn't belong to
ancestors
the
are probably
guild
rolling in
anymore
their
either.
graves in
Yeah,
Maine with that
okay.
accent, but
All
it was
right.
very well done.
Yeah,
It's the
well,
best I've heard.
There's a wonderful story where the guy goes out and there's a grave digger and he says, "What happens if the people don't pay you for digging the grave?" He says, "They pay me or up they come." You've been asking me questions, mister. Mind if I ask you one? No. How old are you anyway? I'm 87. Heck, hardly pays you to walk back to town. Anyway.
You got to go on the
Nice.
road, I think.
Yes.
after.
I think he
Yes.
has
Yes.
been on the
And
road.
they leave
Yes.
him there.
And,
see?
and soon, right?
Yeah. No, they leave him.
In any case, this is what, about your second week? You've been here about 2.5 weeks, something?
It's the first day of my third week.
The first
yes.
day, you're kicking off your third week, getting in a start on things. Now,
And you're still smiling?
I was going to say, you
Terrific.
haven't cried yet? Because I think about week 3, week 4 is when I cried with my job. What am I doing here?
Not yet. I almost cried last week when the place I was staying at in Somerville, a tree fell on my house.
oh, really?
It's just my temporary place for this month. A tree fell, and I was out of the house for 3 days, and I had to find places
Did it
to
fall
stay.
on your part of the
It
house?
did not, thankfully. But the whole front door was completely
Demolished.
demolished, and I couldn't go into the house for a whole week. So I'll be back in tonight. So
What,
it's a
there-
little unsettling. your
What?
first
It is.
couple
You know?
weeks of
Yeah,
work.
There were
don't
no
think-
windows, Kathy?
You can just climb through?
I could
A
climb
back door?
through.
Is
Yeah,
there not a back door?
Yeah,
Improvise.
up the side of the house, perhaps. Yeah.
Well, you've spent.
I
you've
will
had-
be living in Brookline soon, though.
You have
good,
to if you're
good.
going to be executive
Yeah,
director
yeah.
here. I'm sorry, it's rules.
Anyway, you've had a very interesting and diverse career, which we will,
Thank you.
to a large part, allow the people to wait for the press release to,
There we go.
to figure
yeah,
out.
you're getting it hot off the presses, actually.
But you have
Ask him why he's wearing a gray jacket tonight like mine. Gray color. Yeah, how come? You didn't.
Why are you wearing?
Yeah, ask him.
Why are you wearing a jacket, Archer?
Yeah, that
Gray
guy,
jacket.
he's the undertaker at that funeral, the joke you were telling. That's the reason. Okay, all right.
my eyes weren't good, and I
Okay,
reached in the closet, and this is what stuck to my hands.
Okay.
So that's
It's
what
good that
I think
Kara
it
and I
looks good.
decided to go with the bright.
Yes.
Yes,
pasty kind of
exactly.
color.
Exactly.
Put a little
Yep.
color in here.
Yep.
Two
Exactly.
bookends.
In
It
any,
looks like we planned it that way.
in
I
any
hope
case,
so.
you have been doing community, what I will at the moment refer to as community television out in California for a while. And now you're here, and I guess I want to start by saying, do you have any great dreams for some pardon the expression, big changes here at Big.
I wondered how long it would take you to say that.
Yes. Well, it's
Me
written
too.
here. But
Approximately
We
2
didn't
minutes and
practice
30
this
seconds.
either,
I did.
Okay.
because Mike and I have been here since this was Continental Cablevision
Wow.
on things.
When they put the first brick down.
And so obviously there's plenty of space to do new and different things.
Sure.
And there are actually wonderful things going on here, like the
Absolutely.
Media Girls program and the fact that we actually have a Toastmasters group here. But
And race reels and big talks and our education program, all kinds of. I'm very impressed with the work of Big so far.
They also had, way back
Right.
when, over 25 producers working here.
Wow. Yep.
which
25.
I really remember this.
Were they getting paid minimum wage?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Which was a minimum wage.
it was that
minimum
wage that you could double without
But anyways,
any
there really
impact.
were that many people
that's
doing
true.
shows
Yeah.
here
Noted.
Well, you know, it's interesting because
and fighting for airtime.
and fighting for airtime, you know, and that's still that has changed quite a bit. With YouTube and the internet, people can post videos and often get consumer grade products, even prosumer products that they can make their own videos with. But there's still something really, I think, beautiful about what community media provides. You can't walk into a studio at NBC and get a show. You can't even walk into a
So that's what
television station and learn the kinds of high-level skills that people can learn here at Big. So, you know, anyone can make their own video for YouTube and take pictures, videos of their cat or their dog licking peanut
And
butter
they
off
may
the
or-
roof of their mouth. But the level of skills and the level of community news.
I want to go watch that video now. I didn't see that
There's a
one.
lot of cat videos.
Excellent.
as
they
you know.
may or may not turn out to be Justin Bieber, but
Yes, but what we do at Big is so much more than TV anymore because TV is really changing and you know, really viewers are watching the internet as though it's TV now. So we have had to, in community media, really look at how do we serve the community's media and technology needs, and that's one of the reasons that I was really excited about the work here at Big because I think this organization's really been doing that, and I want to continue to do that. To answer your question about what big
changes.
that there may be coming for Big. You know, I think this is one of the most innovative community media centers in the country, actually. I'm very
the whole
impressed.
country, that's
yes,
impressive.
and I have been I was on the national board for our industry for 4 years on the Alliance for Community Media, and I have seen many, many media centers all across the country, and I'm very impressed by what Big offers and brings to the table. We have a very talented staff and talented producers and young people that are using our facility, older people who are using our facility. But there's a number of things that the board and the staff and I think that we might be able to do to provide more services to the community or different kinds of services to the community. So I'll be looking at that over the next couple months.
Well, granted, you're on the first day of your third week, but in deciding to come here, you obviously looked into a lot of things. And what are some of the differences, plus and minus, between Big and your last situation?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I've been describing the situation in California this way. California lost all of its operating funds. So we did not have an operating budget for our community media center, and many, many stations in California closed. We had 50 stations close in California in 2010. Wow. And then across the country, we've had 23 states affected by legislation that the cable companies have been putting in front of legislators, getting them to pass it with a promise of lower cable fees, which never actually come through.
Of course not.
In 9 of the states that that they had said that, the cable rates actually went up. And so, you know, the reason that we're here providing these services to the community is that the cable companies are using our local right-of-way to make a heck of a lot of money off of it, off of our communities and our small towns and cities. So this is one of the things that the community gets back for the cable companies being able to put those commercial lines through our seats. It's quite a hassle for us sometimes to have to, you know, deal with the traffic inconveniences that those commercial services. So it's important that the community gets something back for that.
What do you mean by traffic?
So, you know, a lot of times when they're laying new fiber or they're laying, different kinds of, they're out there doing work on the fiber connections, there's sometimes traffic issues. You'll have to stop or not use this one street for, I know in my
Gotcha.
community in California, they were working on our cable lines for about a year, putting in fiber optics, and that the one street that I took every day to get to work, I had to go about 5 minutes around in traffic just to get to my job. So even if it weren't those kinds of traffic hassles, the fact is that the public airwaves are the public's airwaves. And we don't charge them rent on our airwaves, but we do ask for them to give back to our communities, and community media is one of the ways that we do that.
They're not really on the airwaves because they're on cable, but
Cable casting.
but
Mm-hmm. They're using the
in
public right away.
In
is
the
point
old
that I'm
days,
making, of
in
course,
the old days, we had a lot of
He's gonna
clout
split a lot of hairs.
because
Yeah.
every cable operator was a monopoly, and they
Mm-hmm.
competed for the license as a monopoly. And that gave the community a lot of clout to put this stuff in the contract.
very
And
true.
that's what we originally did.
Yep.
We put community access television in as part
Yes.
of the deal.
Yes.
Then things like RCN came along, who were able to get around this whole thing. They didn't even ask for a license from the community. And so the result of that was that the cable companies no longer had monopoly. So they no longer had the incentive to pay off the community as a trade-off to do business. But fortunately, the People's Republic of Brookline has managed to keep community access television in the deal.
Well, and it's true in a lot of communities, actually,
Yeah.
all across the country. There's some similarities with what Brookline has done. We are very, very fortunate in Massachusetts. The way that I've been describing my old station compared to Brookline and Massachusetts is that I feel like I walked out of a third world country with like 2 civil wars in maybe the last 5 years and massive Ebola outbreaks.
Wow.
That's the environment in California for community media. Unfortunately, we are one of the states, California is one of the states most deeply affected by these kinds of budget
You're
cuts.
really ready to take on a huge amount
And
of
here I am in the first world.
well, a lot of trouble in this first world, I'll tell you that.
Speaking,
First world problems, right?
You got it.
speaking of third world and civil wars and one thing and another, I understand that we have Nicaragua in common.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Were you there in the 80s?
No.
No, okay.
No.
He went down there to build things.
I've
I'll
made
tell you
9
all
trips
about
to
it.
build things in our
Excellent.
sister city in Quesohuaque, which is up by Leon.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know where you
Coffee
were, but-
growing. No, I was actually in Managua and then also out in Bluefields where I
really?
shot one of my films. Yeah.
I don't like Managua, but that's
yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
thing.
It's a place to fly in and out of.
Yes, well, you have to do that and try to pick the right cab when you do it. Now,
Okay. How is that? How are you going to pick the right cab? You're going to discriminate against one cab versus another?
yes, absolutely.
How? But how do you know?
I'll give you an example. When I went to Guatemala, my friends who had done development work in Guatemala for 30 years said to me, the same is true with Nicaragua, when you get into the cab, make sure you're on your cell phone pretending to call me, telling me the license number of the cab as you get into the car. And I said, why is that? And they said, because they will take you and they'll, something might happen. Something bad might happen.
Very good.
It's a good
to know.
tactic. Now, every time
Absolutely.
I go, I was just in Peru, and I got to know every cab driver by their first name. I knew their kids. I knew whether they played soccer. It's a good
Well
tactic.
done.
It is a
Well,
great
you could actually
tactic,
use
yeah.
that in this country too.
Yeah.
Guatemala is a lot scarier than
It
Nicaragua,
is.
though.
It is. Absolutely.
Nicaragua was
Okay.
a nice place. So, when did you transition to television?
Wait, are you going to tell people why I was in Nicaragua?
No, we don't do that on this
No,
show.
you-
We jump
you-
from one thing to the other without concluding the point of the first thing.
How
So
fun. Now I
no.
understand the name of the show.
You go ahead and
Now you get it.
and tell us why you were in Cuba, Nicaragua, and Guatemala.
Okay. Yes, I went to Cuba, Nicaragua, and Guatemala to work on 2 film projects, 2 international film projects. One was on sustainable coffee harvesting. And I worked with Bert and Lois Muley in Santa Cruz, California, who had started a co-op to help support Nicaraguan and Guatemalan farmers by bringing coffee back to the U.S. and selling it for them on their behalf.
trade coffee.
Fair trade, but on a very, very small community-based level. And so we did a coffee harvesting film about their coffee co-op. and people in Guatemala and Nicaragua had been basically exiled from Guatemala because of the genocide there that happened in for 34 years, really.
Bad stuff.
And they had come back, and they had started coffee co-ops, and they were very successful. They had a 64-person coffee co-op there that we were able to film and to show as a model to other coffee co-ops. And then the second film that I did was Don't Cost Nothing to Dream, which is a film about youth in Cuba, Nicaragua, and Guatemala who are using music, hip-hop music in particular, as an instrument of hope and change in their communities.
Excellent.
So we actually have had folks from the U.S. also involved in the film, and we have our narrator is actually from Massachusetts. So when he says the word courage, I got really excited. He'd say, the courage to change. You know, it's always nice. Being in California for 22 years, I would get homesick whenever I heard a Maine accent or New England.
Not what your country can do for you. Ask rather what you can do for your country.
You think we could
He's
grow
really
anything?
good, I mean,
Yeah, he's got it. Yeah.
really
He's got some
You think we could
talent.
grow coffee, do something with it in Massachusetts?
No, we could not grow.
We could certainly bring it in from those sustainable coffee places in Central
Get
America,
some
though.
of
You can grind it and drink it, but you can't grow
I
it.
can get you
I
some.
want to grow some.
You want to grow some?
Yeah.
You can grow it in a hothouse.
Yeah.
It would probably be
Oh, okay.
fairly expensive, and it almost might justify Starbucks' price if you grew it bean by bean in the hothouse.
Yeah.
All right.
I did the same thing trying to develop the coffee industry in Uganda.
Oh, no kidding. How interesting.
They grow very, very good coffee there.
Yep.
Wait a
But
minute, you didn't
export
tell her
none of it.
anything about digging all those holes in the ground when you were down there. Why
Were you
aren't you
digging
talking
fences?
the manual labor?
You like that story?
Yeah, I
Nicaragua.
like that. He lived in a hut, that a dirt floor, and he was eating
Tortillas?
Iguana?
What?
Probably tortillas and
An
iguanas.
iguana
Did
tortilla.
anybody offer to serve you iguana?
Yeah.
No, I did not eat
Well, you
iguana.
can't-
I was actually vegetarian when I went to Guatemala. I now
okay.
eat meat,
But there would have been a great debate as to whether the iguana qualified.
that's true. I think it would.
It is.
seems
It's
like it's a
reptile.
moving animal.
I was
What
trying to
about
figure out
fish?
what I was
Meat,
eating, and I
flesh, yeah.
suggested, because the only Spanish word I could come up with, I suggested lizard, and they looked absolutely
No.
aghast. So apparently in Nicaragua, iguana is not a lizard, and you be very careful
Oh.
about the fact.
Oh, it's like a chicken. Yeah.
Wow.
Now,
I think it does taste like chicken.
I think you just eat whatever a country offers you, and you don't. I mean, if you're a vegetarian, that's different. If you're gluten-free, that's different.
Yeah,
But as
both.
far as
What's both?
if you're open, because I'm a gluten vegetarian while eating fish, I would have to say no, which is my saving grace. But if I didn't, I would have to say yes. Please give me the frog legs. Please give me the alligator.
I have-
I'll take some rabbit.
I have to
Roadkill
say,
snake.
Roadkill snake.
sitting at that meal, they had this celebratory meal for us and honoring us. And he got up, the father of the family got up and he said, I know that some of you can't eat our food, but we really want you to enjoy this. And I thought, oh my God, how am I going to eat the pork and the chicken they just
dear.
killed? I'm a
Yeah.
vegetarian 21 years. I do eat meat now because I'm gluten-free. And so it seems
You
like
run
it's
out of
gonna be tough.
food.
You run out of
You
options.
do run
need
out
to
of
fill
options.
And I kept sort of like, moving to the side the meat and the chicken to my neighbor. And
Under the rice, under the
I don't
rice.
think
done.
he saw, yeah.
There's
I think
always
they got
gotta
away
be a
with
rice
Play it off. He was
hiding
busy.
under.
Right, there's a lot of rice. It's true.
My thing was getting used to beans and rice for breakfast.
I love beans and rice for
I
And
liked
breakfast.
it for
Chicken
lunch
for
and dinner,
breakfast.
but for breakfast
Are
it
you,
was a
going
little
to
fun.
talk about any changes here?
Would you like for me to? I would love to.
Just you gotta jump in
I have
with
to
your
jump in.
thoughts.
Is that
you
how it
know?
works?
That seemed to be the question. What changes do you have for
What
us?
changes? Well, I've been here
2 weeks in a
11
day.
days now.
We've established that.
We have 11
2
whole
weeks in a
days.
day.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I'm looking at right now is what we can do to reach out to the non-big community. So people who aren't using our resources currently, and see how to get them in and to be a part of the organization. And some of that is the non-user community. It's not people who want to make TV shows. How do we reach seniors in our community? How do we reach more of the K through 8 population in our community? How do we help working families or families who need a place for their kids to go? We're doing a lot of that already, but what are ways that we might be able to go out into the community? The staff and I, you're going to be the first people to hear this, so I will give you the scoop.
Don't listen, folks. This is a secret.
Yeah, it's a secret. Shh. we are going to do something called, you've heard of StoryCorps that NPR did a great job with. Well, many of our media centers around the country have done the same kind of thing for decades, right? As you know, Archer, it's been something that community media stations are really all about, community media centers are all about giving voice to underrepresented voices in the community, having local people tell their stories. And so we want to make that more accessible to the Brookline community. We know there's some great stories here. We've filmed a lot of them. Members have filmed a lot of them. But we want to go out and talk to people who haven't necessarily had their voice shared yet.
That's
so we'll be going
fabulous.
on location to lots of different places with our story Vox, VOX. And we'll be in really engaging people and asking them to talk about themes that we'll have every month.
Old stories.
I was going to say, there's so many old people in Brookline. You could just, be busy forever.
We had a lot of fun prototyping that last summer.
You guys did it
on the road show.
On the road series.
That's great.
It was a great experience.
So,
That's how we know how to interview you. Because we had so much practice this summer.
That's great.
Randomly going out and meeting people.
Wait a second.
Are
we really doing that?
No, but this is our style.
Going by and guys yelling about bottles that we were dropping.
People on the street.
It was fun.
Anyway,
It was good skill building.
Well, I'm a field producer, so I love, and I'm keep hitting my microphone really great in the studio here.
That's why I sat you next to Mike.
I'm a field producer. I love being out in the community. My documentary work is all out in the field. It's very activism and social justice based. You probably saw in the work that I've done. I worked as a community organizer like our president for 8 years when I first got to California, and then I spent 13 actually years in the technology sector.
What do you think of Governor Brown?
What do I think of Governor Brown? I mean, this time or the last time?
It's a leading question. Loaded. I should have said.
It's interesting. He's surprised me this time around. It's very interesting, some of the things that he's done. Although I have to say, I find Massachusetts more liberal than California.
Of course.
I didn't know that.
It's all the smart people.
It really
It's all the intelligence in one place.
Yeah.
And that's my belief on it.
Oh,
now I have a question on your documentaries.
Yes.
So,
Thanks for asking me.
Well, I'm gonna try, so you don't have to try to figure out what we want from you. Now I didn't read the bio here, but what were you doing? Were you producing? Were you telling people here, go here, or did you have the camera, or were you facilitating relationships? What were you doing to make those documentaries happen?
I'm the director director-producer, so I'm the jefe. I'm the boss.
Excellent.
I walk around telling everybody what to do.
Good.
And which was always fun in Latin America to explain to the men that I'm the jefe.
Yeah.
Not these guys, I'm the jefe as the
You're the
woman.
jefe.
Excellent.
I'm the jefe. And
No, jefe. Not heffa.
It's good.
Exactly. I had to nip that in the bud.
Maestro de opera.
Yes. Well, so my work was really everything. I mean, I had a director of photography that I worked with, Emery Hudson, a very talented DP, and I also had been a line producer for other films with him, so I had been the person who coordinates everything for him. But on this film, I was the director and the producer, so that meant I had to get all of the crews to get to where you needed them to be on the day of the shoot, which was very difficult when language, your first language is not Spanish. I did all my interviews in Spanish, which is kind of amazing because I still don't feel like I'm fluent. I learned Spanish entirely by traveling.
Wow.
But
I
did learn
amazing.
French. I did learn French here in New England. And actually all my friends
Ça va bien.
muy bien. See, I can't even speak French anymore. I just go right to Spanish.
That's good.
And if she
Isn't it
learned
all the same?
Well, those are all the kids we have in the schools.
Yeah.
All the
she learned
Spanish
in
kids.
Maine, she actually learned
Spanish-speaking
Acadian.
I actually learned
Puerto
Quebecois.
Rico.
Yeah, I learned Quebecois for sure. And I lived in Quebec City. But, what I really did was, figure out where are we going to shoot, who's going to be in the scene, what's the story, what I would even work with the DP to decide what angles we're going to shoot from.
What about script?
I wrote the script.
You did the script.
I did the script.
So how many
producer,
people?
director,
I did it all.
and writer.
Yeah, and my DP and my film partner, he did most of the editing. I probably edited about 30% of the film, and I shot about 45% of the film as well.
Was this film, video, or digital?
We actually did have to shoot it in SD, so it's, it was on mini DV, but we didn't have the money for, we funded this whole project ourselves. So we traveled for 25 days in Latin America. In getting to Cuba, they actually they took me aside and they interrogated me. And
Wow.
I saw the room with the proverbial swinging light bulb, and I was very grateful that I didn't get pulled into that room. But he kept saying to me, in Spanish, like, what are you doing here? Are you a journalist? Are you a journalist? Because you're not supposed to go to Cuba unless you have a visa with the U.S. government. And Cuba also wants you to have a visa if you go into Cuba from them, saying it's okay to be there and we want to know what you're shooting, and they want to know a lot. So we didn't want to go there as journalists. So we went very subvertly, and we subvertively, yes.
Excellent word.
And we
That's a way to go. Did you swim in?
I didn't.
That was going to be my
did not-
question. You stole my question.
Oh, okay.
But
The scuba gear on.
I'll tell you a great story. One of the women, we only were able to find one woman who was very prominent in hip hop in Cuba. And there are many others, but we weren't able to get interviews with them. We only had 6 days to shoot in Cuba. And we would be all set up to do this shoot. And we couldn't bring a lot of our big gear into the country because they would know we were journalists, right? So we had
to play it cool.
We had reflectors that we had folded up, that they didn't look at. We didn't bring our big lighting system. We used camping headlamps, actually.
They
Wow.
shot it all on their iPad.
Well,
You can nowadays.
You could now, but in 2007 and 2009, we didn't have those tools
But
available.
this is all going to be tame for you being here.
Yeah, but that,
No, she said it's the
I think
most
there's many
amazing.
adventures here.
This is
Oh,
amazing
yeah.
opportunity
Joking.
because it's got a great
that
foundation.
HD Canon, though, that's really sneaky. 'Cause
Well-
it looks like an SLR.
And then there's the drones now.
It's like you're having
drones
three
are
separate conversations at once. So
Yeah.
this is how this show goes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're having a conversation
Yes.
with him,
Yeah.
a conversation with
And
me,
at the same time.
and Michael.
That's good.
There's no flow. It's just
This is community
This
television.
is community television. I love it. So I will say though, the woman in Cuba, she was the first hip hop DJ in Cuba ever. First woman, first female hip hop DJ,
Yeah.
and we were able to interview her.
Tough country.
And she came over on a boat with 23 other people, a very, very small boat. She said she was unable to move for days. There were so many people on the boat, and she made it to the United
we've
States.
seen a lot of that.
Was able to stay.
Wow.
And she's, that was just
To
that was
survive it.
8 years ago
Now,
that
wait
it
a second.
happened.
Did you
survive
interview
it.
her here?
We interviewed her in the U.S. Yeah,
Oh,
so we
okay.
interviewed her in the
Okay.
U.S. So
Bless
We've got
her.
so many more questions. We were out of time.
No.
We have
Wow,
already?
We have 1
1
minute. We're going to
Oh,
run out of
really?
time.
Okay.
Yeah, we have 1
Yeah,
minute
it's not
left.
stale
You're going to have to
around
come back
here.
and
I will. I would
there's
love
going
to
to have
come
to be
back.
more because we
Okay.
have so many more questions. You're
I would love
such an
to.
interesting person.
thank you so
It is so
much.
exciting that you're here and
you.
all the differences that you have the opportunity to make here at
Yes.
Big TV.
thank you so much.
we
I
have-
can't wait to meet the entire community. I've met so many people. People are wonderful here.
We
They're
have
so
a traditional
warm.
closing on
Okay.
it.
We
We
have
don't
to
have
sing.
to use it tonight. It's okay. But
No,
we
no,
don't-
if Irene's watching, we have to do it.
Okay.
Good
night,
night,
Irene.
Good night.
Good night, Irene.
Irene,
good night. Irene, good night. We'll see you in our dreams.
Good night, Irene. Good night, everybody, from the Fun Show at Big TV. Happy Hanukkah to everyone. I believe we'll see you again next week when we'll wish you a Merry Christmas. Have a pleasant evening. Good night from the Fun Show.
Bye. Don't forget your apple.
that our
Thank you.
timing?
It's great.